Friends, the current global emergency due to coronavirus is tearing businesses apart, and every day several of them are going bankrupt. How do we see this health emergency? To discuss this important topic today, I have Professor Anil Kumar Gupta, who is the head of Environment and Risk Management Division, National Institute of Disaster Management. Professor Gupta, welcome to the show. Again, this global emergency is tearing businesses apart. How do you see the business risk to this community and how we can solve them?
Yeah, this is a very, very different kind of emergency. And if we look at even the coronavirus incidences in the past, this is entirely a different range of emergency. It is first time that we can say that entire globe is under the impact, more than 110 countries. And now, in fact, the numbers are increasing. Those are under the impact of this coronavirus pandemic. So this is a very, very important and very, very challenging scenario. And besides this is also important that the various countries are now in a different at different stages. For example, now China has crossed the phase 3. India is likely to enter phase 3. So there are again new kind of challenges. Looking at the business, as I told that more than 110 countries have already been affected, but it has affected the global economy. And there are estimates that it is going to affect at the tune of around $3 trillion.
Wow!
So this is a kind of a serious level of challenge. In China alone, this is an estimate that it has already affected this year's 2020's GDP by 3.5%, and in US alone, 1.2% deficit in the GDP is being projected because of this. So these are just some kind of the initial calculations or estimates. When the things will come up more, people will have more solid data, then it may even increase. And beside this, the other dimension is equally important, that China over the past 15-20 years has integrated into the global economy, global business, and global commercial relationship in such a way that many countries' economy, many countries' businesses were heavily dependent on the supplies from China. In terms of electronic goods, in terms of plastic-based materials, pharmaceuticals, and several even domestic products. So that has caused a major disruption. But again, now there is a shift. Initially, it was the endemic in China, and then the entire globe was affected. Now it has spread to the entire globe, and so again, new kind of scenarios are emerging.
Yeah, you're showing some projections for logistics, supply chain industry right here. My question is it already too late for businesses to react?
I would say that this is a kind of a mixed situation. If some period has already passed, we cannot do away, and certainly we have to look at what can be done for the future. Certainly, in some sectors there has been very, very severe disruptions. For example, in tourism sector, there has been major disruptions. There has been major disruptions in the pharmaceutical sectors also, because there were several supplies from China which were coming as the kind of a intermediate products for pharmaceutical industries, and so in that area there is a very, very severe disruption. But whatever period is left, because now there are clear projections, clear ideas that which countries economy, which country is in almost kind of a which phase of this coronavirus pandemic. So looking to the scenario that whether it is reaching community level or whether it has already passed the community level and there is going to be some kind of a recovery phase possible. So based on that, the businesses have to immediately evolve their strategy. Some businesses have already started.
Right. So tell me, what are the specific steps that the business community should take?
Yeah, first thing is that if we talk in general, and there will be two different scenarios. That talking business continuity issues, looking to the health challenges or the disaster related challenges in general is one aspect, but looking specifically to the particular this coronavirus menace that is going on nowadays. So that's very important. So now, for example, if we talk about the industries in South Asia, South Asian countries, or in India, we are thinking of the risk of the stage 3 when it can spread to the community. So if that is the scenario, businesses has to be have a more faster thinking. So in fact, the initial prevention stage has already gone. So now the prevention level, I would say whether they have to jump directly to 3, and for that they will need to adopt a new strategy where they think that what is the minimum optimal functioning that is required to maintain the existence of the business, because business continuity relates to keeping the business functional during the stage of crisis, so that once the stress is over, we can bring back normalcy and we can recover back from the shock. So this is the key issue. Second thing I would here say that business continuity is not only the recovery plan. Business continuity is the plan that how we sail through during the crisis period. And second thing, we should also have no confusion between the emergency response and business continuity plan. Business continuity plan or business continuity strategies are one stage ahead of emergency response.
But I'm putting right here some of the specific steps that you say that business should do. Tell me, what is the biggest step that business should take today?
That is very much required is kind of a forward thinking with a critical analytical approach. So a differentiation between the business as usual and the preferred scenario, looking to what is going to happen. So I would quote that I often refer to, that businesses should focus on no surprises kind of thing. They should end no surprises. So they should anticipate what can happen. And this anticipation for what can happen is not basically to prepare to deal with that situation, but the initial step should be to avoid that situation. Can we avoid that? Can we prevent that? So that is important to achieve that kind of preferred scenario if possible. So for example, now many of the businesses have already minimized the physical presence of their staff in the offices, but looking to the type of business, that is also important, that what are the businesses. For example, it is a production system, whether it is a distribution system, whether it is a merchant, whether it is a kind of where a lot of offices and human resources are employed, or whether it is electronic based or e-based systems. So looking to that, how can we minimize the personal contact, because this particular coronavirus, the personal contacts are the important dimensions of the risk. So many of the businesses, many of the corporates have already shifted, but some are still thinking. So we have to have a kind of a fast level of decision making in this line.
No, I completely agree with it, and I know large businesses have already done the forward thinking, and there's this ISO framework on how to work risk management. Can you just explain to me briefly how this works?
Yeah, if we look at this picture clearly spells out that business continuity is one or two steps ahead of normal course of emergency management. So certainly, where the people's health and safety is concerned, that is the basic step the government and community has to take care. Health response is fundamental, but the business response, business continuity managers to have to see that how they sail through, how they maintain the minimum, at least bare minimum functionality. Are they optimize their resources and activities so that the system continue to exist during the risk period? Otherwise, if the system doesn't exist, then it will be a kind of a very a devastating situation. So the business managers have to think of alternatives, whether
Right.
alternatives in terms of manpower utilization approach, alternatives in terms of raw materials, alternatives in terms of transport approaches. So alternatives, optimization of resources, and looking to that how much we can minimize the pressure. So these are the kind of a 2 3 important dimensions which are fundamental to business continuity. And then at the same time, they don't have to sit and wait for the next stage of the pandemic or any other kind of disaster to come. But at the same time, they have to start preparing for once this disaster is over, how fast and in what ways they can achieve the normalcy, or they can achieve the business recovery as fast as possible, because this is a
Exactly.
competitive world.
Business recovery
It's
is
a very, very competitive world.
right. Business recovery is the key. Now it is like
Yes,
if your competitor recovers before you, you are gone,
yes,
right?
then you don't have any space. Yeah.
Yes. No, I completely
So
agree with you. And
yeah,
there are certain steps for disaster management
yeah, this
and
is
their
a
roles.
yeah, this is a kind of a new dimension where now, in fact, in India we have asked that all the ministries to come up with a business continuity management plan looking to disaster management. So disaster management plan for sector is a kind of a business continuity plan looking to various kind of natural and man-made disasters. So these are the steps. First thing is you need to know what are your risks, what are your vulnerability, what are your capacities. Then first thing is that you develop a strategy to minimize the risk, develop the strategy to prevent the risk. But yes, we know despite of all the best efforts, there will be some kind of residual risk. So address the residual risk by having a effective emergency coordination plan. Then you need to have resources, you need to have financial strategies, you need to also look at the linkages with other sectors, other industries, ancillary units, and then capacity of the people and the professional units. And certainly you should have a very, very clear plan to implement this plan.
No, and it is very sad that like environmental emergency, like coronavirus, people are just thinking about it as a health emergency, but it was an
Yeah.
environmental emergency first, and not
Yes.
not a lot of businesses have taken this into consideration, even if they are large businesses, especially in India and elsewhere.
Yes.
There are so many dimensions to environmental emergencies, right?
Yes. Actually, this has been a kind of a I would say that we need to demystify. We need to work together to relook at the environment, business, and disaster relationship. In the current situation where the issues related with environment has become so crucial, so fundamental for the survival of not only for the people or the sustainable development, for the businesses itself. So that is very important, because there's a long list of various disasters that can cause disruption to businesses, that can cause disruption to the supplies, raw materials, electricity, cooling, even even the manpower engagement with various businesses. And past uh, past 2 decades, there are several such examples where environmental emergencies has caused serious disruptions to businesses and infrastructure as well.
And yeah, exactly. Like water emergencies, fog, smog, air pollution,
Yeah.
flooding, cyclone, landslides, oil
Yes.
spills. They were all
Yes.
environmental emergencies, but businesses never took care of it because they thought that they were too large, just governments should respond. But now
Yes.
that like coronavirus is just at their door, all the businesses are thinking about environmental emergencies now.
Yeah, and I would like to refer here that this year in Delhi, we have to declare health emergency because of air pollution situation. So this is not
Exactly.
only in this country. In many countries, there has been such kind of situations where health emergencies or environmental emergencies has caused disruption.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree with you. And you have been working in this space for the last 3 decades. How do you see that this thing has evolved?
Yeah, it's very important point comes here that almost 3-4 decades we have been focusing on only one aspect of environment,
Mhm.
that improper planning of development or ill planned development has a negative impact on environment.
Mhm.
But there is another dimension of environment where environment is a host of, or I would say that environment as a platform or environment
Mhm.
as a creator of risk or environment which has several factors which generate several hazards. So whether
Mhm.
it is in the form of events, whether it is in the form of process, whether it is in the form of the quality of various input components to businesses, so that create hazards. So environment as a risk driver. Now we have to start looking at environment as a risk driver, and
Exactly.
then yeah, and then we look at environmental management as risk management strategy for safeguarding our businesses,
Mhm.
safeguarding ensuring the sustainability of our corporate interests and business interests as well.
No, and for years, there has been a lack of policy action from the government in regard to environmental disasters. What do you think are the key policy shifts that the government should undertake in order to make this a part of the business continuity?
Yeah, this is very important. But I would also refer that on the global level, the policy initiatives are significant. But
Mhm.
translation of the global policy to national policy, then coming to the corporate level understanding or the local level understanding is even more important.
Mhm.
So if we refer to the global and national policy scenario,
Mhm.
that we had this Hugo framework of action, and there the priority 4 was underlying causes of risk, addressing underlying causes of
Mhm.
vulnerability and risk. Underlying causes is something that which we do not directly see. There is something going on beneath the table, and that is creating the risk. So we need to understand that what is really happening inside the system, and that sometimes we call it opposed to the other side of the end of the pipe approach. So we have to look within the pipe what happens and creates this.
Mhm.
So this is important, and it's very interesting that the new framework for 2015 to 2030, that
Mhm.
is Sendai framework for DRR. This
Mhm.
priority 4 of Yogo framework of action has become priority 1. So globally the importance of this theme has been recognized,
Mhm.
and now I would like to relate it with the corporate sustainability regime. So
Mhm.
if we are looking at safeguarding our corporate interests, we should also look at not only responding to the crisis situation, or not only trying to manage or trying to deal with the crisis situation, but we should look at what are the components, what are the process, what are the scenarios that can present the risk scenarios or the surprises.
Right.
So
Exactly.
if you say that you are anticipating all kind of surprises, then you would be able to address in some or other ways into your planning or your strategy.
No, and you have shown this national planning and pilots that are being taken place in India and in the Asia Pacific.
Yeah.
What is the cost and benefit analysis? Have you undertaken some kind of cost benefit analysis of how this should work?
Yeah, this is very important. I would refer to some of the business projects. This is a very common methodology for evaluating any business intervention or the infrastructure intervention. But if we look at some such kind of infrastructures in past, which because of their position, location, because of their design, because of their structural dimensions, aggravated disasters risk, and that has affected not only to the local business but long range even supply chain systems also. I would refer to the fog situation in some parts of the country in India, where lot of disruptions to the transport system occurred, and because of the disruption to the transport system for more than 2 3 weeks, there was a challenging impact on businesses also, to small businesses also, on road businesses also. And this cost benefit analysis, now there people are having new questions. The question is like that: cost to whom and benefit to whom?
Right.
So this is important. This is important. There was a flyover constructed, and it had started causing urban flooding in some areas. So at the time of cost benefit analysis, it was the cost versus benefit. So benefit was very high. But this question, that whether we should incorporate the environmental costs or social costs into cost benefit analysis. Beside this, now we are evolving a new integration to the environmental impact assessment process that we are calling as disaster impact assessment. So it takes account of the life cycle approach to see that whether this project has a potential to aggravate the disaster risk for its own, or for the community, or for any other nearby infrastructure as well. So these are the new dimensions that are coming into this course.
At National Institute of Disaster Management, under your risk management division, what are the projects you are taking that might impact the future?
In India, we had hosted in 2017. We had hosted the 7th Asian Ministerial Conference. Now, next one will be in Australia. Now it is postponed because of this coronavirus only. So this is one example of
direct impact, right?
Yeah, disruption. So thousands and hundreds of such examples are there. So we had hosted here, and in that Asian conference, India's Prime Minister had given a 10-point agenda on disaster risk management that has been largely applauded by several countries, and where the key mantra is that all the sectors of development to imbibe the principles of disaster risk management. So whether it is a health sector, whether it is an industrial sector, whether it is a petrochemical sector, whether it is a pharmaceutical sector, water sector, can we safeguard the business continuity of that sector, looking to the disaster risk scenario? So that is a kind of a mantra. That is a kind of a key to resilient building. So we are working to implement that. Beside this, for two pilots we have taken, that we have developed the agriculture sector disaster management plan. So this is a agriculture sector business continuity strategy.
Right.
Similarly, we have also prepared recently National Health Adaptation Plan, looking to the climate change impact on health issues and disaster-related health issues. We have developed this. We are also working for crisis management plan, national level crisis management strategy to deal with contamination of water bodies.
Okay.
This is also some or other way related with health emergencies, and that can affect the industrial population, industrial townships also. Then we are also working on a very strategic dimension, that is corporate and sectoral strategies to incorporate disaster risk management as a business continuity strategy. And when I say business, I include urban local bodies also. I include infrastructure systems also, for example, power supply systems or the effluent treatment plant or water treatment plant. These are also the business units that I consider them. Are the institutions also, are big hospitals also. Those are also the business units. For example, a 400 bedded hospital, that is a business.
Yes, I certainly agree with you. But
yeah,
there's the big question now. What breakthrough you perceive is still needed?
Yes. So as I was referring to that at the international level, there are very good policies now we have. And although we have been trying to implement those international policies and international treaties where the nations are party through our national and subnational initiatives, I find there is some gap in the professional capacity. So we had very good bureaucratic setup. We had some kind of good response and volunteering network that we are trying to evolve. But still, science is working in isolation with policy sometimes, and policies are working in isolation with the ground realities. So, in very effective science policy interface, science policy ground action interface that I see, and then I would like to refer here the former Director General of India's Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, Dr. R.A. Mashelkar. So he had written that India's science policy implementation at the ground level needs a shift towards kind of a pole vaulting, not only just looking at a small steps. Yes, small steps are important, but we should have a broad vision. And in the entire Asia Pacific, I don't find a very dedicated and very having a very strong capacity institute on disaster risk management as a professional discipline. So people are working within government systems. So this kind of institution is somewhere required, and I perceive that India is also thinking in that line.
And I would mention that in this perspective, our platform Paryavaran.com has brought together members from 2,000 plus environment organizations just on one platform. And we are working to have you as a partner so that we can properly disseminate all the environmental risks factors that businesses can take, and we can bring all the businesses and professionals together on one platform. So you have a two-way traffic, right? Two-way information dissemination. And science should go where the problem is, right?
Yes. So basically, science has to be presented in a way so that the users are motivated to use it, and then only actually it will be easier to incorporate into business continuity implementation. For example, the rainfall or the weather forecast. How can we use the simple weather forecast into our business continuity related issues or the sustainability related issues even in our businesses, in our organizations? So similarly, looking from a smaller level forecast to the larger catastrophic scenarios, we have to see that how simply we present these science and technology so that people take interest in and they can utilize it.
Now, Professor Gupta, you have been so eloquent in explaining how disaster risk management works. I wanted to ask you a very personal question. Who is Anil Kumar Gupta? Rome was not built in a day. Tell me more about you and how you got interested in this sector.
Yes, you make me to think back. Yes, I was born and brought up in India in Central India. Central India is relatively not so developed province, and the reason where I was brought up is a chronically drought prone area, having water related issues, having land related issues. And I saw during my childhood, I saw a fast pace of industrial development in those areas. So environmental issues, disaster related issues were there. And then I realized that whatever development, whatever fast pace of development you have, if 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 you are not taking care of safety and the precautionary measures for disaster management, your all the developmental gains of decades or even 2 decades time or whatever time, that those can be washed away in few hours or sometimes in few minutes also. So
Right.
this subject is very, very important, and that's why I started working for integrating the issues of sustainability, business management, inclusive development, and the environment-related issues and emergencies. That how the synergy has to be brought and how the integration has to be brought.
No, that's great. But tell me, is it more difficult to work as a champion for sustainability rather than working for safe areas like finance and IT sector?
See, there are different dimensions. Yes, there are challenges, but there are a lot of motivation also. There is sometimes you have to sail through your very interesting kind of challenging environment, and but yes, it is required. Whether I do this, whether I take the lead in this area, or whether someone else does, but I believe that this is a very, very important dimension, and some people have to come forward. And I say that I'm not alone. Now there are many people throughout the world and many experts throughout the world, many agencies which are thinking those lines. But yes, now combining business management strategy and disaster resilience, this is something, a new dimension that has emerged. And this coronavirus incident has made us to rethink our business continuity strategies.
Yeah, and again, simple steps, right? Businesses can take, right? They have to review and revise quickly alternatives, optimize their minimum workforce, look out for alternatives in raw material and supplies, right?
Precisely.
Assess on-site staff commuting, whether they're going to risk areas or not, ensure personal protective measures, monitoring and vigil, maintaining proper flow of information, right? And then
This is very
business normality, right?
This is very important because in our offices or organizations, people are there. We have to provide them the protective measures, but we should also know that how they are commuting to the workspace, how they are arriving. So there may be chances of their exposure on the way, in their families, in their homes. So we need to take care, and for the safety and sustainability of the people, and but at the same time safety and sustainability of the business interest as
well. Prof. Gupta, what is your legacy? What do you think you want to leave as a footprint for the future generation?
I would say that this is the new period that is coming, where most of the things are going to be driven by artificial intelligence. We are at a very high pace of leap towards the role of artificial intelligence in these areas. But at the same time, we should equally keep valuing the softer dimensions of humanity. So that is very, very important. So I would say that emotional intelligence and social intelligence, so that is very important, and that will help make our humanity and the human world survive. So that is very important. And the third thing is that for survival, safety is first.
Right.
So if we are safe, we can prosper. If we are not safe, then we are creating new uncertainties. So that is important. So we have to look at the possible uncertainties. We have to find out the answers. We have to modify our current strategies to the preferred scenario, or to the more efficient, sustainable strategies. So this is my my message to.
No, thank you so much for your message, and I have no doubt that businesses will emerge victorious from this coronavirus crisis, as they have throughout the decade and throughout history. So this is just another learning lessons. And if businesses properly work for disaster risk management planning and working through all the risk registers and what are the problems and issues and keeping it as part of the business, I have no doubt that will survive.
Yeah. So
yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so you precisely touched the issue of you use the term register. So that is important. Documentation is very, very important, because drawing the lessons from the past failures or past disasters or past risks is important. If we had drawn the lessons from the SARS incidents or previous some kind of pandemics, and we had incorporated into our business continuity plan, probably that would have been even more helpful to deal with this situation. So now we should understand that drawing the lessons from even not only our mistakes or our failures, from others' failures. So that is also equally important for the business.
Certainly. Professor Anil Gupta, thank you so much for your time. And everyone who needs to ask questions, you can go to our website, paryavaran.com or envindia.com. Professor Anil Gupta is a member of our Indian Environment Network for almost a decade now, and he'll be happy to answer all your questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.